Today we're jumping into a really powerful parable about purpose, faith, and transformation. It's a story that looks at how incredible pressure can actually create something beautiful, and it does it all through three simple ideas: a stone, a chisel, and a sculptor.
Right off the bat, this quote just gets to the absolute heart of it all. It completely reframes how we think about a life's journey. It's not about climbing some corporate or social ladder. It's about being a stone that needs to be shaped. So it's not about rising up in the eyes of the world, but about being formed for a much deeper purpose. This is the lens for the entire story.
So, first things first, let's break down the key players in this parable. It's a really simple but wow, profound allegory. Okay, so here are the core pieces. The stone, that's our main character, a young guy named Janarius. The sculptor, that represents this new faith that's pulling him in, the force that's acting on him. And then you have the chisel. That's all the trials and the hardships he goes through, the actual tools that are going to shape him. Let's keep these three symbols in our minds as we go.
So, let's meet the man himself, the unshaped stone. We're going to look at his raw potential and the two very, very different paths that were laid out in front of him.
So Januarius, he was born into a world of, well, huge opportunity. He comes from a really prominent family, and he was pretty much destined for a life of Roman power and influence. You know, his path was smooth, it was predictable, it was paved with a promise of worldly success. This was the future that absolutely everyone expected for.
And right here, you can just feel the conflict brewing inside him. On one side, you've got the world's path. It's loud, it's celebrated, it's ambitious. And on the other side, there's this inner path, and it's described as rough, quiet, and totally unformed. I mean, he was standing at a crossroads between two completely different definitions of what a successful life even means.
So which path does he choose, right? Well, this is where the sculptor's work finally begins, with those very first chips of faith.
And get this, the moment of choice came when he was just 15 years old. This is the exact point in the parable where Januarius makes that definitive move, turning away from that smooth, paved road and letting the sculptor get to work.
Now, what's so fascinating here is the perspective. The world, with all its expectations of power and prestige, they saw this choice as a total loss. They wanted a grand monument to his family's name. But from the parable's point of view, this wasn't destruction at all. It was this essential, careful chipping away of worldly ambition to reveal something much, much truer underneath.
And his new path, it progressed fast. By 15, he's a priest for a tiny hidden community, a clear rejection of fame. Then, just 5 years later, at 20, he's made Bishop of Naples. And this wasn't a move for comfort or status. The story calls it a move into a grander and more exposed quarry, which put him in a much more visible, and frankly, much more dangerous position.
So, being out in the open like that brought on immense pressure. And you better believe the world was not done trying to shape this stone for its own purposes. As bishop, the Roman Empire started to notice. They didn't see a man of faith. They just saw raw material, a rock of promise that they could mold into a statue that served their glory. So they tried to reshape him, using threats, offering him power. But it was too late. His commitment was just unshakable. Why? Because his allegiance had already been set. The stone belonged to the original sculptor, and no amount of imperial pressure was going to change that.
And now we get to the climax, the final blows. And this is where what looks like total destruction is actually framed as the final, revealing act of creation.
A time of great persecution began. This marks the start of the final and most agonizing part of the whole process. The pressure is about to become completely unbearable. And here, the metaphor becomes incredibly powerful. The chisel, that tool of shaping, it transforms into the sword of martyrdom. The ultimate trial is presented as the ultimate creative tool, the one thing needed to finally complete the masterpiece. From the outside, it just looked like a tragedy. The world, totally blinded by its own values, saw only destruction. They saw a promising life just shattered by imperial power, a failure.
But this one line turns the whole thing on its head. What looked like breaking was actually revealing. With every blow, that earthly exterior was being chipped away, not to destroy the stone, but to finally let the true image inside shine through.
And so, we finally arrive at the radiant masterpiece. The painful process is over, and the statue of faith hidden within is now revealed. The work is completed with this one, final, really poignant detail: a single drop of crimson. It's not an image of violence, but of finality, like the sculptor's last touch, signaling that the masterpiece is now complete.
This final comparison really just sums it all up, doesn't it? The people, they mourned what they saw as a broken man. But the sculptor, the one with the true vision, he saw the masterpiece that had been hidden inside all along, and he was pleased with the result. It all just comes down to perspective. So, the big takeaway is clear. Janarius's journey was never about climbing a ladder. It was a painful, humbling process of being shaped, transforming him from just a vessel of human ambition into what the parable calls a radiant, everlasting statue of faith.
And that leaves us with this final thought. It's a really provocative question that takes this parable way beyond just this one story. What hidden beauty, in our own lives or out in the world, is only ever revealed when the exterior is chipped away? Or maybe even broken? Definitely something to think about.